YouTube fan community, David Bowie fans, random people on the internet, my name is Giggens, and we're here today to talk about the 2024 Record Store Day release, David Bowie, Waiting in the Sky, Before the Starman Came to Earth. This is a Record Store Day release of what was to become the David Bowie Ziggy Stardust era, and it's fascinating because there's 4 songs on this record that didn't make the final cut, and 3 songs that aren't here because they haven't been recorded yet. The recordings of this particular version of the album date back to December of 1971. And at this point, Ziggy, David Bowie was really getting into the Ziggy mode here. And a lot of the songs kind of have that feel of what was to become Ziggy. But the 3 missing songs, Suffragette City, Rock and Roll Suicide, and Starman, some of the most important songs of that era just hadn't been written yet. And Starman in particular is like such a Bowie song, such a Ziggy song. And it was written as a single because the record company heard this album and was like, there's no single here. We need something that's going to get on the radio and make you a lot of money. And make us a lot of money because we're record companies. We went back to the drawing board and wrote 3 of the most incredible classics of all time. No big deal, just knock those things out. This particular album is a half-speed master and it sounds fantastic. It's one of the cleanest sounding copies of the Ziggy era I've ever heard. So much so that there's stuff in the background that I've never noticed before, so I don't know if these have been remixed at all, but for me personally, I've heard this album a million times. There was stuff I was hearing going on in the background that was new to me, or songs that kind of went on a little bit longer, so you hear more things on the fade out. It was just a really fun, exciting listen. The 4 songs on this record were included to be, what was to become this Ziggy Stardust album, but it wasn't called that at the time. It really wasn't so much a concept album or a story yet. When the last 3 songs got written, that's when it was kind of formulated to be this sort of narrative to sort of tell a story, but loosely. So you got Round and Round, Amsterdam, Velvet Goldmine, and Holy Holy on this thing. Other songs from that era were Sweethead, Looking for a Friend, reworkings of the Supermen from The Man Who Sold the World, which is pretty cool. It's Gonna Rain Again, Shadow Man, which will show up many, many years later on the Toy album, which is really cool. Check that one out. For a while, the album was actually called Round and Round, which is just kind of bizarre. Like, I know the whole Ziggy thing was like, coming out of that 50s rock and roll feel, but with the whole glam rock thing that was happening at the time, keeping it simple, keeping it short, keeping it punky. But this cover of Round and Round, we'll start there because that's the first song we hear on the album that's new. Round and Round is a Chuck Berry cover, his classic song from way back in the day. Stones did it. Everybody covered this song. It's a super raw sounding jam. Like, musically, it's a very dry recording, but his vocals have that really cool, ghostly 50s echo on them, that great reverb. Vocally, he sounds like John Lennon. That's all I hear. I can just imagine this being on John's rock and roll album a few years later, but it's such a groove that would fit on the Pinups album with no problem. Like, fine, put it on that record, but it doesn't fit at all on for the rest of this album. It just does not have the same sly, cool, slinky feel that the rest of this album is dripping in. This one sticks out like a sore thumb, and the fact that it was possibly going to be the name of the album is also very mind-blowing and definitely a head-scratcher, because it's kind of like, this has nothing to do with the rest of the album. So I'm really glad it got cut. I love it. I think it's an excellent cover of the song, but to fit it in the rest of the album, it just doesn't work. Amsterdam is kind of the same ballgame, where like, it's a really interesting song, and I feel like it would have fit decent as like a hunky-dory B-side. With its bleak storytelling and minor key acoustic guitars, it just doesn't fit the feel of the album. It's an interesting listen, and I think Bowie gives a convincing vocal, but like, the track itself just doesn't gel with the feel of everything else going on. That's going to be what I'm saying a bunch of times in this video, but that's just how it is. Very cool track nonetheless. And then Velvet Goldmine is one of my favorite Bowie songs ever. This thing is it's just instantly the Ziggy era. Lyrically, it's just as zany and weird as anything else on the rest of this album. The chorus has this matter-of-fact vocal delivery, which I really, really enjoy. He's just like so succinct and, on point with his delivery. The pounding piano rules, the guitar solos are great. The song is glitzy and sly. It's just a fantastic track all around. So again, I love this song. It maybe could have fit in this album, but I like it better. Maybe it's just a B-side, which eventually it would come out as a B-side, but hearing it on the album is cool. And maybe because I've heard The Real Thing a million times, this just doesn't work, but like, it's a great song. It's one of my favorites, but it cuts it close in terms of like making it on the record for me. Holy Holy to follow that up is one that I think wouldn't have fit well on the record, even though it's got the feel of the rest of the Ziggy stuff, but it's just weird enough where I feel like it would be just weird enough to not work on the record. I love the vocal effects. I love the excellent guitar solos on this thing. It's a super solid song, but again, I feel like it's just too left of center to fit in with the rest of the record because like the other songs on here are so tight and wonderfully executed with amazing construction. You know, you have the incredible emotion of 5 years, and then the really cool, sleek soul of, then the heavy rocking focus of Moon Age Daydream, which is a wild track, but it's a really honed in wildness. You know, Rock and Roll Star, or just Star as it became called. Same sort of thing, excellent storytelling and ballad, but like, you know, Holy Holy has elements of these tracks, but it takes it just a little too far. I love the song. I don't think it works for the record. Hearing the album in its original track listing like this makes for a very interesting listen because, you know, having heard the real record a million times, you know what's going to come next, and you know kind of what the narrative is of the delivery of this loose story, if you will. And by the time you get to the end of the record, you get that payoff with the title track and Suffragette City and Rock and Roll Suicide. You know, you kind of build up to this monumental, almost Sgt. Pepper-esque ending with Rock and Roll Suicide. And, you know, the real album ends leaving you feel like, wow, I was taking on a trip. Like, that was, like, intense. Like, what was this side 2 of this album? Like, I've got to go back and do it again. Hearing the album like this, ending with Lady Stardust, is fascinating because at this time, I'm wondering if Bowie was like, you know what, this is the best song to end the record with. This kind of wraps up the feel of what Ziggy is. You know, the cool, calm, collected, slightly sad story, but like, and then just kind of peters out. You know, just kind of ends. So the song works way better on the actual final Ziggy album. On this album, it just leaves you kind of feeling empty. And it's kind of like, ugh, that's it? A great song, one of my favorites, but as a closing track, it just doesn't fit the bill. So I'm really glad they went back and wrote 3 amazing classics to stuff onto this thing and take the other ones off and use for B-sides or just use down the line. Here's the back cover. Very simple, just the track listing. You know, it says who played on it. The classic Spiders from Mars. David, Mick Ronson, Trevor Bolder, and Mick Woodmansey, or Woody Woodmansey, if you will. But yeah, some credits on the bottom. And the inner sleeve is great. It's the original tape box. Which is cool because on this it says Port of Amsterdam, so just Amsterdam, right around. Rock and Roll Star, before it was just called Star. And just a simple, what they've been doing lately, the old school RCA label recreation with Bowie's name there instead of RCA, which I love. So yeah, for fans of the Ziggy Stardust era and just Bowie in general, you're really going to love this album for many reasons. Number one, the sound. It sounds fantastic. It's such a clean production. Like I said, I don't know if they spiffed up these tapes at all, but something about this is just incredible. It might be the half-speed mastering. It really makes a significant difference. The bass textures are richer. The vocals are crisp and clean, just, you know, lilting over the top of the song. The guitars are vibrant and sharp. Everything about this performance feels in the room and very modern. It doesn't sound like a record from 1971, 1972. It sounds like something they recorded yesterday. And hearing the little bits and pieces at the tail end of these songs, or sometimes in the background during the track itself, is a treat because you're hearing things you've never heard before. You know, I'm sure a lot of you have heard this album a bajillion times like I have. And hearing it was like, hearing this record was like hearing it for the first time. It was a lot of fun to listen to. So it's not just collecting all those other tracks and like throwing them into a Ziggy album. Something about this is different. Again, it might be the half-speed mastering process, but hearing the track listing the way that it is makes for an almost disjointed listen because, especially with Round and Round and Amsterdam, those are totally the wrong choices for the album. It derails the album completely. Cool songs. Round and Round is an awesome cover, but it just doesn't fit the vibe of the rest of the tracks they had written because they had written incredibly complex songs that just capture a mood, they capture a feeling, they capture an idea, a concept. those two songs sound like they're just stuffed in to fill out the album. Velvet Goldmine and Holy Holy come close. And I feel like they were on the right path. I think without those two songs, you would have never gotten a Suffragette City or a Rock and Roll Suicide or a Starman. So I think we have to thank those two songs in particular for what was to come next. As it is, playing it through in this track listing, the track listing, you know, it's fine, but it's just not the best because of those songs. It's just cool for historical reference. I'm feeling like a total 8 on this thing. I mean, it's so much fun. It sounds incredible. And, you know, Ziggy itself, I would give a 10. I think it's an amazing album. But, like, because of the songs that aren't there, that are here, it does kill the momentum a little bit. On the historical front, I would give this thing, and historical front and sound front, I'd give this thing a 10 with no problem. It sounds amazing. It's one of the best sounding versions of this album I've ever heard. I would love to hear a half-speed master of the Ziggy album. If there's one out there, let me know. I may have missed that over the years, but I'd love to hear a new version of that for sure. So I recommend picking it up. If you're a Bowie fan, absolutely you'll love it. If you're a Ziggy fan, you have to own this thing. I think you're really going to dig it. So that's it. My name is Giggens. This has been David Bowie, Waiting in the Sky. Before the Starman came to Earth, definitely an 8 to a 10. 8 for track listing, 10 for sound, but that's it. Let me know what you guys think about this album in the comments below. Happy to chat about it. My name is Giggens. I'll see you guys in the next album review. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.